Before the world knew him as master, before the crowds followed him, before his name became synonymous with miracles, Jesus was a young man who asked too many questions, and some of those questions would lead him to places few dared to go. Joseph's workshop was silent that afternoon. The sun slipped through the wooden cracks, creating stripes of light that danced with the dust. Jesus was 15, and his hands already knew the weight of tools, but his eyes sought something the wood could not reveal. He watched his father work, not to learn the trade, but to understand something deeper. How could a man so good live in such a broken world without breaking too? Joseph noticed the gaze. He stopped, wiped his hands, and sat beside his son. "There's something troubling you," he said, not as a question, but as a statement. Jesus took a long time to answer. "Father, why is there so much suffering that makes no sense? Why are there people who seem taken over by something that isn't them?" Joseph breathed deeply. "There are things the world has carried since before us. Forces we don't see, but that act. They have a name. They do, but they aren't names spoken lightly." That night Jesus could not sleep. His father's words echoed, invisible forces, unspoken names. He rose and walked to the window. The night was thick, moonless, and the silence felt alive, as though it were listening to his thoughts. He felt something strange, not fear but recognition, as if something out there had been waiting for him for a very long time. Days later, during a visit to the synagogue, Jesus stayed behind after the gathering. The others left in groups talking about ordinary things. He approached the elder who guarded the scrolls. "My son, it's already late," the man said. Jesus did not move. "I want to learn more." "About what?" "About what isn't said openly." The elder raised his head, surprised. "How old are you?" 15. "Too young for certain knowledge." Jesus looked straight at him. "Or too old to keep ignoring it?" The elder studied the young man's face for a long moment. "There are texts," he began slowly, "that we do not read aloud. Texts that speak of things before the flood, of angels who fell, of secrets that were sealed." "Why sealed?" "Because knowledge without preparation destroys the one who carries it." Jesus felt his heart race. "I need to know." The elder sighed. "Come back tomorrow, before dawn. Alone." The pre-dawn was cold when Jesus returned. The elder waited with a lamp and an ancient scroll, different from the others. The leather was darker, the letters more irregular. "This," said the elder, "is the book of Enoch. It is not among the accepted texts, but it has been preserved by those who know certain truths cannot be erased, simply because they disturb." Jesus reached out, but the elder held the scroll. "Listen well. This book speaks of the Watchers, angels who descended and taught men secrets they should not have known. It speaks of Azazel, who taught war, of Semyaza, who taught enchantments, and it speaks of how those beings corrupted creation, begetting the Nephilim, giants of violence and chaos." Jesus listened in absolute silence. The elder continued, "It also tells how Enoch ascended to the heavens and received revelations about the coming judgment, about the fall of those beings, and about the power that the name of God holds over them." Jesus looked at the scroll. "May I read it?" The elder hesitated. "If you read it, you will never be the same. This knowledge marks a person." Jesus did not retreat. "I need to understand what is wrong with the world, not just see it, but understand it." The elder handed him the scroll. "Read it here now, do not take it away, and do not tell anyone yet." The hours passed like minutes. Jesus read every word with a concentration bordering on trance. He discovered that evil was not merely human, that there were ancient intelligences operating through weakness, pain, ignorance, that these beings fed on chaos and dwelt in the broken places of the human soul. But he also discovered something else, that there were names of power, invocations that could expel those presences, authority that could be exercised by those who knew the truth. When he finished, the sun was already high. The elder watched. "What did you understand?" Jesus closed his eyes. "I understood that suffering has an origin, that it is not merely chance or divine punishment. that there are forces working to keep people imprisoned, and I understood that those forces can be confronted. The elder nodded slowly. Now you carry a weight. Use it with wisdom or it will destroy you. Jesus returned home in silence. Mary noticed immediately. You're different. He looked at his mother, and she saw in his eyes something that both frightened and comforted her at the same time. I learned things, Mother. Things that explain much of what I saw but did not understand. Mary held his hands. Be careful, son. Knowledge without love becomes a weapon. Weeks later, Jesus was walking through the square when he saw a scene that paralyzed the others. A man writhed on the ground, foaming at the mouth, shouting disconnected words. People moved away, some in fear, others in disgust. He's possessed, someone murmured. Call the priests. But no one approached. This time Jesus felt something different. Not just compassion, but recognition. He knew what he was seeing. He approached slowly. The man twisted his head unnaturally and looked straight at Jesus. The voice that came out was not his own. Son of the carpenter, what do you want with us? Jesus felt the air thicken. He remembered the words from Enoch, the names, the authority. He did not answer with fear. He answered with firmness. I know who you are, and I know you do not belong here. The man laughed, but it was a joyless laugh. You're too young to face us. Jesus knelt beside him. He placed his hand on the man's forehead, felt the feverish heat, the inhuman tension. He closed his eyes and spoke, low but clear, the words he had learned from the scroll, names of authority, invocations of light. The man convulsed, screamed, but Jesus did not remove his hand. He continued, voice steady, until the man's body suddenly relaxed. Silence fell over the square like a cloak. The man opened his eyes. This time they were his own, confused, frightened, but his. What happened? Jesus helped him up. You were held captive. Now you are free. The people around whispered, Who is this young man? How did he do that? Jesus did not wait for praise. He simply left, feeling the weight of what he had just done. That night, Mary found him sitting alone. You used what you learned. Yes. And it worked. Mary sat beside him. Your father and I always knew you would not be ordinary. But this is different. You are entering dangerous territory. Jesus looked at her. Mother, if I have the power to set free, how can I not use it? Mary held his face in both hands. I'm not saying don't use it. I'm saying prepare yourself, because the more you set free, the more they will come after you. The following weeks were different. Jesus began to be sought out. At first discreetly, people who had heard, who had tormented relatives. He received them all, always in silence, always with the same method, words of authority, invocation of sacred names, expulsion of presences. Each time it confirmed what he had learned. Evil had structure, hierarchy, names, and knowledge of those names was power. But not everyone viewed it favorably. The religious leaders began to notice. A young carpenter performing exorcisms without formal authorization, without rabbinical training, this was unacceptable. They summoned him. Jesus, you are causing disturbances. By what authority do you do what you do? Jesus met their gaze. By the authority of truth. You read the scriptures, but you ignore the texts that explain the forces tormenting the people. One of the elders frowned. What texts? Jesus knew it was a delicate moment. The texts of Enoch, the revelations about the fallen watchers. Heavy silence. Those texts are not accepted, one of them said. Why? Because they disturb the order. For the first time, Jesus felt anger. The order of whom? The one that allows people to suffer because you fear knowledge that unsettles. That is not blasphemy. That is liberation. You prefer to keep people in darkness to preserve your control. He left there knowing he had crossed a line, but also knowing he could not go back. That night he had a dream. He saw Enoch walking among the stars, saw the fallen angels chained in darkness, saw the coming judgment, and he saw himself in the future, not only casting out demons but teaching others to do the same. He awoke with absolute clarity. This was his path. Joseph found him in the workshop at dawn. "I heard what happened." Jesus nodded. "Father, I cannot stop. There are people suffering in ways I am only now beginning to understand." Joseph placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "I know. I ask only one thing. Don't do it alone. Power without community becomes isolation." Jesus embraced his father. "I promise." The following months were intense. Jesus not only cast out demons but studied patterns. He noticed that certain spirits operated through fear, others through guilt, others through shame. He learned that each had a name, a function, a hierarchy. And he learned that liberation was not only about power but about truth. People needed to understand what held them captive in order to remain free. He began to teach, discreetly at first, small groups that gathered after nightfall. He shared what he had learned from Enoch, always connecting it to love, compassion, justice. Knowledge without those roots became dangerous. Mary sometimes joined, listening to her son transform ancient secrets into practical wisdom. One day a different man appeared, older, with scars from old battles. He introduced himself as someone who also knew the texts. "I came to see if what they say is true." Jesus received him. The man asked hard questions, testing his knowledge. Finally he said, "You understand more than many who have studied for decades, but understanding is not the same as victory. There are spirits that do not leave easily." Jesus agreed. "I know. That's why I don't do it alone. I invoke something greater than myself." The man smiled for the first time. "Then you understood the most important part. The power is not yours, it is loaned." Jesus nodded. The man stood. "Continue, but know there will be a price. Those who set others free always pay." Jesus already knew that. He already felt it in the looks of the religious leaders, in the distance of some neighbors, in Mary's constant concern. But he also saw in the eyes of the liberated something worth any price. Gratitude, yes, but more than that. Recovered dignity. Years later, when Jesus began his public ministry, many would wonder where his power over demons came from. Some would say it was divine, others that it was secret training. Few would know the truth. That there had been a 15-year-old boy who read a forbidden text, who had the courage to ask what others silenced, who learned that knowledge and compassion together form the most powerful weapon against darkness. And that night, years before any public miracle, Jesus looked at the stars and understood something Enoch had also understood, that the universe was at war, that this war passed through human hearts, and that choosing the side of light meant carrying the weight of forbidden knowledge. But carrying that weight with love was what transformed knowledge into liberation. And liberation was what the world needed most, even without knowing how to ask for it.